What's up guys, Jack with Jack to Lean. Today I'm taking you guys through a pull day, another episode of Rebuilding Jack to Lean, the second training video here. Just did a full breakdown of what I did over my hard 4-week cut, lost 20 pounds in 27 days, and now I'm at the end of a 2-week transition phase before I move back into a really hard grow push for about 12 weeks. So take you guys kind of through what I do for back. Back's been one of my favorite muscle groups to train forever. Dorian Yates, like my favorite bodybuilder of all time, the best back of all time. So I was obsessed with training back when I started lifting. So something I'm passionate about growing. I had a pretty good back for a while. Started prioritizing other things. You know, as I've described in other videos, life got in the way a little bit. So now I'm going to focus on growing that back up here. I'm going to be training about twice a week. And I'll do a whole breakdown on why I'm doing what I'm doing coming up soon here. So let's get to it. You guys can pick up some tips and tricks along the way. One of the big areas that I really want to grow my back right now, I mean, everyone wants to grow a full upper back and, you know, low lats and all that. But I really want to focus on is my kind of like low lat erector area. I feel like I've lost some muscular like thickness and density there and width lately. So today's me primarily kind of hitting that like lat into like the low lat erector area. And I believe in making sure everything kind of integrates down there nicely. So like we'll hit some erector work, we'll hit some like low lat work, bent over row type work. So you'll see as it progresses that how everything kind of ties together, because that's one of my big emphasis points. Still solidifying exactly what I want to do for the push in terms of like my back days. So today's kind of feeling out how do I like more work driven specifically to that area, a lot more volume than I'm used to going specifically to the area. Not a whole lot of upper back work today, primarily just lats and like erectors. If that goes well, maybe I'll hold something like that, and then maybe a upper back, I don't like the word thickness, but upper back kind of focus day on the other back day. I like starting off my back training with some sort of like a kind of a mid row. This one has a slight kind of arc down. There's a little bit of a stretch in the lats, which is why I like it, but I like starting with a row because otherwise your lats are kind of cold, especially moving into an aggressive stretch right away. I'll see a lot of people start warming up their back with like pull-ups and chin-ups, and that's fine. But I think that's a pretty aggressive movement that's not super light relatively, right? You gotta use your body weight. And they start just kind of cranking them out, and then like they're just not driving the right neurological conditioning and patterning to what they want to train that day. They're just cranking out reps versus starting with something that's going to get my like actual connection rolling with my lats, things that feel good, not an aggressive stretch, but enough where I start to warm the tissues up. And then I move on to a pull down. That's always worked really well for me and all my clients. I think it's like, I don't know if it's like a young person thing. You just see a lot of guys just ripping off chin ups to start, and I always thought that was interesting. I've never liked it. Ooh. Machine tip. Every machine has its own movement path and arc. So when you're training back specifically, whether you're trying to hit lats, upper back, whatever, you got to make sure that you're considering your frame versus what the machine is giving you. So in this case, if you actually look at this one, like it comes out at a slight angle, it diverges a little bit, versus this one stays on a very consistent path back. So on this one, it's a little bit easier for my elbows to stay in the exact same line, versus this one, they start here, they finish a little bit out here. This is actually a perfect width for me, which is why I like doing this one 2-arm, right? I couldn't go single arm and kind of really swivel and get my hips into it. But for someone who's a little bit narrower, this might actually end up getting a little bit too wide, and just look at some like lats and just like overall back in there. But that's why I have different options in my gym. And when I program for people, I consider their width and their frame and their structure as much as the machine. This is a fantastic back piece, but for someone who's like my wife, who's 100 pounds, it's a little wide, so she gets on this one. So if you're having trouble growing your back, specifically your lats, where the elbows want to stay a little bit tighter, make sure you're considering the machine and its path of motion in relation to your body. good sets there. I'm gonna stick with 2 sets on my moves, maybe even 1 today. Again, kind of first week trialing out this particular workout. In my push, might end up bumping up volume a little bit. Specifically with something like the back, there's so many muscles you gotta hit. It's not about being low volume, I don't really believe in that, but you have to consider, again, the number of muscles and angles. I've talked about this in other videos. Something like the back, there's so many angles to hit. And I think developing a well-rounded back is like looking at the mechanics of the machine and the arm pass and all these different angles you can train in and making sure you have at least a little bit of work for each angle, and then that accumulates the volume. So 2 sets on this one. We'll move on to a pull down extra when he's done. All right, up next, we got some pull downs on the BBB, Big Back Builder, formerly known as the BBP, Big Black Pull Down. The best slot of all time, and because of how high it is, I even have this chain on here. No one bottoms this thing out. The stretch on this is absolutely crazy. I've actually been really excited to work this in. I think with this kind of some bro science, right? But everyone's all focused about hitting this slot for lats. Not wrong, this like high row angle. I do think there's some utility going like straight up overhead, and at least every time I include that in my plan, I think my back grows. I'm not gonna say it's the best for any necessarily portion of the lat. Depends on how much lean you have in your elbow and wrist position, but it's also just good for like building overhead mobility, right? So if you're not doing something like a chin up or another machine that goes right up overhead, I'd say especially if you're having 2 back days a week, I'll consider having at least one of them include like an overhead pull down motion, not just like a high row. Yeah. So on this one, as I'm coming up, I'm kind of thinking like stretch through a little bit, let that weight pull me up and through. I'm gonna clear my shoulder, a little lean back, and just slide the elbows down. So I get a nice, this actually feels crazy stretch my lats, and this little lean almost creates a bit of that high row type angle where I feel like I can just slide right to my lat. I'm not trying to like stay in it and pull this position, I'm clearing. Now you could say, well, Jack, wouldn't this be better for like your upper back day? Because, you know, if you do lean a little bit more, it might trace a little more like upper back than like low lats at this type of an angle, right? Well, yeah, maybe. This just, for me, again, because of the like position of my knees relative to overhead, like this one feels so money. I just feel it right where I want my low lat. Plus, I also had that Cybex row, which, if you look at it, it's actually like a pretty decent angle down. So I think I already kind of got that angle hit. So going up overhead to me is more different than kind of just like one more degree there. And I can save that type of an angle for like my other pull day. So that way I still get a little bit of lat working on that day. Feels pretty money. Back training. Just like that grip it and rip it. I was never that dude that got like secondhand bicep gains from back training. So obsessed with training back the right way to grow like a Dorian Yates back. I took my biceps completely out of it. And so then like, I didn't get like the bro bicep gains, but at least my back wasn't small. We'll fix that. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, yeah, 2 sets will be good there. This is one I feel like I could honestly just kind of do endless sets on. I just like feel better and better. So this one will probably go up to 3 sets for sure. Like as I'm starting to push up volume and food and everything else a little bit more. So I'm just kind of get myself used to the motions because I'm going to have 2 sets of this, 2 sets of the last move. I'll have to go into some single arm rows and then some bent over underhand rows. So it'll be 8 sets for lats right off the rip. See how I recovered from that? You know, I can be sore, but still have been beneficial, right? And then we'll see if I need to add any more, you know, down the line. Do some single arm bent over rows now. So if you think about the angle on this one as you're pulling, if I were to stand up and pull, I'm at about this angle, right? I'm just changing the orientation of my torso. So I like to train the lats from multiple different angles, okay, of shoulder flexion basically. And on this one, I am going single arm because when I block, I let that arm drift down a little bit more, get a nice stretch in the lats kind of around the rib cage there. So I'll do this and some underhand bent over rows, and you might say, well, Jack, that's kind of similar line of pull. But again, it's exactly what I'm trying to hit right now, and me stabilizing the weight on my own, right, will work a little more of the erectors integrating with the hips and the low lats compared to something like this where I have that brace and I'm working a little more of like that single arm rotational style stretch. So I want to call it a redundancy because there is a variance. But again, I'm trying to hammer this area a little extra hard. If you're not, you could split them up on different days. So I'm doing these. You'll see my feet are slightly turned to help create a little bit more of this lat wrapping. I also kind of like sit back in the hips, let the arm really stretch down, and as I come up, I kind of rock myself forward to slide up through the lats to create a little bit better line of pull. I'm big on rhythmic motion, especially for back training. I mean, everything in general, but for back, I really like this like stretch, rock, and roll kind of through the motion or boom. I just find that helping to reorient your body and helps create a line of pull that you want. You don't always have to stay super fixed and just rigid. You can shift your hips, a little rotation to help accentuate the dynamic movement that is training, especially for the lats. Nothing gives me a better like top to bottom lat feel than some good like deep stretch single arm rows. That like hip shift is everything. Pushing the hand away as you shift the hips back. Nothing gives me a better stretch in that area that I want to hit, and like feels like it's just filling it out than that. If I stay too rigid, I might start to pull up through my shoulder. But coconut water and like relight. Money. It tastes like refreshing. I don't like when people tell me to take like this crazy like big powder during a workout. I feel kind of bleh. Like coconut water and electrolytes. Sometimes all you need. Or some aminos that are nice and light. Like I like the Anthem one. The shuffle's pretty good. Ooh. 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 It's good. I don't know about you guys, but I get like super excited. I'm getting ready to push. Everyone loves like a good diet, get some abs back, but fucking growing, it's tough to beat. And I'm gonna try to do more of like a lean grow. I mean, everyone says that, but like, how do you actually do it? Kind of the point of the series. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show you guys what I'm gonna do. I'm super pumped for the next 12 weeks. I finally feel like, even recently when I've been like, yeah, I'm gonna try to grow, I just feel like I wasn't set up for it. I feel really fucking healthy right now. Body comp is good. I'm in a good rhythm. All my routines are nailed. So when I start to grow, I feel like my body's gonna be really responsive. just having that like more even clear, in this case, shorter timeline, because honestly, we got a couple cruises coming up starting next year. And so I'm gonna push hard, do a quick mini cut, go on those, make that my diet break, come back and grow again. So even like this 12 weeks is like, all right, Jack, what the fuck can we do in 12 weeks? So I know I'm not doing a good pump for growth phase, but I'm super pumped. All right, upper back rows. And I'm gonna go do some bent over underhand grip rows, and then some like erector hinge work. Ooh. I know this is a lat focus day, low lat focus day, but just wanna do like a set or two just to touch the muscle, tell it to stay a little bit. If you end up having a short turnaround, you wanna do like a hard like lat. I don't like width and thickness days. That never really fucking makes sense to me. But you want to kind of do like more of like a lat versus upper back, that makes more sense. And you have a quick turnaround, then I want maybe include something like this. But for me, I won't train back again until like Tuesday. So I got a few days to recover, so I want to do just enough to touch it so that the muscles like got a little stimulus. I even almost thought about doing like some bent over T-bars with more of like an overhand for my bent over work today. That would be another option. Let's say you just didn't have these extra couple sets of recovery capacity or time. How do you maximize now, again, integrating like that low lat erector like I talked about, instead of maybe doing an underhand grip bent over row, go do like a bent over T-bar or an overhand grip barbell row. So you can still get the erector work, but now you got a little bit of upper back work in there. But I have the time, I have the recovery, so I'm gonna do both. Ooh. 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 Nothing makes you feel bigger than like an upper back pump. Like you can't even see it, but like you can fucking feel it. I feel like professional strongmen walking around. So fatigued right now, I can't even think of their names. Huh? Give me a name of a professional strongman from like 10 years ago.
Eddie Hall.
No. No, not them. Magnus for Magnuson. That's the name I was looking for. Yeah. I was thinking like the world's strongest man was on like Sports Center, ESPN back in the day. Those dudes were fucking hardcore. I was like, you saw their upper backs walking around like this. Like those dudes, like they can move some fucking weight, man. I used to like have this shit memorized. It was like baseball cards to me. All right, rows, 100 rows. Maruz Pudanowski, this dude. That's who I was also thinking of. Guys, these guys were like, fucking, look at this. I'd kill to fucking look like that. Do you need straps on back day? Answer is kind of, it depends. I personally can do without them. One issue I do see is if you're doing like just like a lot of gripping and pulling your day in general, you're a pretty strong person and you're not giving your forearms a chance to rest, you're also maybe doing lots of texting and everything else. It can cause some elbow pain if you do everything without them. But I also don't think you want to do everything with them either. I'm not gonna say it's because your forearms get super weak. That might be a bit of a residual side effect, but frankly, like if you lift any weights at all and you're any decent size, like you're probably not too weak in your forearms, just from like literally loading weights all day, right? So kind of just to your own discretion, and maybe you can do most of your warm-ups without them and then do a top set with it and then your second set without it. Whatever you want to do, or start without them and finish your workout with them. As long as it's not limiting your output from your target muscles, that's the only real consideration, and or you're not getting elbow pain as a result of using them or not using them. I don't like doing like hinging or heavy bent over rolling with shoes on, even if they're like flat bottom. Good. This is like the first of like the real erector work. My plan today is to do this, and then go into some hinging, finish off with some back extensions. It's kind of like I said before, you want to build like that low lat area, hangs down by the hip. I don't think you can only do like pulls all day long. You need to do something that integrates like the low back, erectors, low lats, usually through some sort of like bent over row kind of loading. It will integrate everything together, and trust me, like you'll know when someone doesn't do enough bent over row work. They'll always lack in that low area. Dorian Yates did a lot of underhand grip, bent over barbell rowing, and I think that was one of the reasons why he had such a crazy back. Ooh. 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 I do these at the end of back before erector work because now my lats and everything that would normally not get as much stimulus if I did these early on, because I mean, let's be real, the limiting factor here is usually going to be your low back. And so by doing them at the end after my lats have already been pre-exhausted, they're more likely to have a closer fatigue point to the low back. And so like right there, my low back is still, because that's why I'm working on it, right? So a little bit weaker in relation, but I felt still like a good stimulus, got a good pump going on. And now that area's again kind of been like warmed up, not just from a connection standpoint, but if you just jumped first and went right into some really heavy bent over rows, it's taking you a while to warm up to something where you're not gonna fuck yourself up by doing it. So, you know, you're going underhand, heavy load here, just don't be an asshole. Structure your workout smarter and you'll be safer and get more out of them. This is the point in the workout where my shit just starts kind of getting like laid out everywhere. I need one of those like bags that you can like clip onto metal things. They're pretty sweet. On to some hinge work. So we did the bent overs, which obviously kind of started to get everything integrated. Now more erector loading. I'm not actually trying to be as dynamic. Some people might do like more stiff legs with like actually letting that back kind of round and unround, almost like a Jefferson curl. I'm not trying to do that. I still want like good hinge mechanics here. But just from like the more isometric loading perspective, right? Like it's stabilizing, it's not trying to do dynamic movement. I'll still get some good work in there. Plus now on my leg day then, because I'm only gonna have one leg day a week, I don't have to spend a lot of energy at the end doing heavy hinging. I can hit my quads a lot harder with just like basically lots of leg curls and some hip stuff because I'm loading my hinges on this day. So I have a double whammy there. I'm getting some erector work when erector's already working. I don't have to load the weight quite as heavy then. And I save some capacity, work capacity for leg day to put more into other muscle groups. And when you've deadlifted as much as I've deadlifted, and a lot of you understand this, you get to a load where you're just kind of like, just fucking don't need to go anymore. I love me some good progressive overload, but you're ripping like 400, 500, 600 pounds off the ground. Like, you gotta start becoming very intelligent with how you program things or you're gonna fuck yourself up. When I first started training, there was a video I watched of an IFBB pro. I can't tell you who it was, but he was doing like RDLs on one of those old Cybex platforms. And he had like 225 on the bar, nothing crazy. And he was just, the way he was like sinking, you could like see the hamstrings and the glutes tying, everything just like radiating, like it just was stripped out down his hamstring. It looked fucking awesome. And he banged out more of like a moderate to higher rep, but his technique was flawless. And at that point I had been trying to RDL and just deadlift like as heavy as I fucking could. And I felt like I wasn't growing my posterior chain. I was only gonna set myself up for injury, and I watched that video and completely changed how I started to hinge. Now inherently I can still hinge a lot even if I have good form, but I started intentionally thinking more about like how my pelvis should be moving and how the hamstring should be integrating, you know, all that type of stuff. And when you start to get to that level of push on your hinges, that's what's required to grow them if you're gonna grow them from this motion. Otherwise you're just accumulating a lot of like systemic fatigue. Not necessarily a bad thing, not the fatigue monster, but like still a consideration for sure. Like if you don't feel like there's anything fucking working somewhat targeted, you're probably just gonna have to hurt yourself. Ooh. Ooh. Up. Ooh. That was good. I enjoyed that. Thoughts so far on my programming here. Feel pretty good about it. I think this amount of erector work after I do some back extensions will be perfect. Might even be able to work up to like 3 sets on the extensions, and if I wanted another set of something like this, I could handle it. Or maybe I do like a hyper, like my standing back attack, and then go into my back extensions. For the actual lats, obviously I know I can handle a bit more volume there. Another set of pull downs, maybe another set of rows, maybe even a set or 2 of some pullovers just to kind of like hit. So there's actually, technically when you're doing here, you're kind of training like the inferior angle of your lats there. So that'd be like one final thing I could kind of add it on this lat day. Unless I wanted to add like another pull down instead of that, but then I'm not worried of the work. I'm not afraid of the work. But you're kind of like, okay, what is my benefit there, right? Versus adding a little bit of lat work on kind of my upper back day. That way, there's probably going to be anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe even 12 sets on this day, and then 2 or 3 on the other day. So that's like 12 to 15 across the week, which is pretty perfect for something you're trying to specialize on. And my other day, I'm not going to have the hinge work. That'll be some like bicep work at the end of it too. But I might add in a bent over, again, like maybe like a bent over T-bar on that day. We'll see, just for some upper back and a little bit of erector work. I'm kind of a big fan of, sure, you can have everything twice a week, but it doesn't always have to be the same exact amount of volume twice per week. You can do something like, 6 or 8 sets and then like 2 or 3, right? And then flip. So I'm doing more erectors and lats. I could then do more upper back, some biceps, and maybe still touch on some of those. This all depends on your total weekly volume, your fatigue, recoverability, target body parts. Ooh. 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 Yeah, that's good. Ooh. Oh. Oh, fuck. Oh. When you're doing back extensions, I'm gonna really think about like wrapping your back around the pad. Like you start flexed, really extend and like wrap. You'll feel, basically almost like each segment of your spine fucking contracting down. Take a nice flexion, back into extension. That's like the dynamic. We need that dynamic component as well to build muscle. My back is feeling good though, like cooked, but like in a good way. If you start to feel just like one side or there's stabbing, shooting pains, do something different. But if you kind of feel like a nice like even soreness like you would like your lats, your biceps, a lot of people have never trained their low back. They're afraid to load it. That's why they are hurt. That's why they are, it's because they're weak there. They never go there under any sufficient load. And so they finally get there doing something correctly or incorrectly, and their body's like, holy shit. And then they stop training it, and then the cycle continues. So you gotta make sure you actually like intentionally load it. That's why I'm saying a little bit more like moderate to high reps here, that 12 to 15 range. Doing 2 sets today. Not gonna hit my peak volume. I'm trying to hit my peak load right now. I just wanna work back into it, but I do know that like, oh, okay, like I'm working the area. It feels good. This is not a dangerous pain. I just gotta be careful then tomorrow about adding in any leg work, which I'm not, right? That's where people would mess it up, is they do this and they go do some heavy squats or something after the next day, and then you may be at a risk of an issue. Ooh. Ooh. We're gonna finish off with some abs, and then tomorrow I'm gonna do a little push, so with some arms. So it's gonna be chest, delts, and bis and tris. So I get my abs in today and I'll hit legs on Sunday. go with 2 working sets here. I've skipped abs for way too long. So I've always had decent ab structure, and I built them up early on and kind of let them go a little bit. So I'm gonna make sure I hit this every single week, once a week. And I think this machine is super underrated for abs. I love crunch machines, but this thing where you can just kind of let it sit right on your abs and then just a little exhale and like cinch them down, money. Plus it also feels kind of good going the opposite way compared to extension, right? All right, that's a wrap for Rebuilding Jacked, episode 2, lat and erector day. Like I said, just finished off kind of a bridge phase here. I'll be starting my push next week. I'll be doing a video for you guys breaking down my lab work for my last 4-week hard deficit, kind of what happened, some interesting things happened there. And then I'll be doing a video talking about what I'm gonna be doing for the next 12-week push up. Things have been really productive, a little bridge phase here. Figured out a few things. I'll be training some push tomorrow. Legs on Sunday, off on Monday, started on Tuesday. So stay tuned for more episodes of Rebuilding Jacked.